Welcome in, guys. Welcome back to the Marshall Experience and Sports Lounge Media. This week we are covering the AFC North fantasy preview. Just as a division as a whole, we've done the last few weeks. We've done the AFC West and the AFC East to start out with. So if you've been kind of following, next week will be the AFC South, and then we'll get into the NFC side of things. So we're excited, to touch on the AFC North. I think there's some couple of hidden gems in here that need to be hit on. So we'll get started right from it. Going to be a shorter episode tonight, so we're going to fly through these things. But again, before we get started, appreciate Sports Lounge Media and our viewers as well. If you guys have not went over there and subscribed to either the Marshall Experience or Sports Lounge Media, man, you're missing out. Big things happening over there, big things that are going to be announced in the next couple months. You're going to want to be a part of that journey, guys. And, it's completely free. The subscribe button, the follow button, doesn't cost you a penny. So no excuses on that side. But we'd love to have you over here at the Marshall Experience and Sports Lounge Media. And again, we appreciate all their efforts over there at SLM. So we'll get started right into this. We'll get started with Baltimore. And Baltimore, for me, is still one of the safest fantasy offenses in football because Lamar Jackson keeps the weekly floor elite. Okay, so we'll get started with listen here. Injuries and the Ravens' general offense regression spelled doom for Jackson last season, in my opinion. Okay, he missed 4 games with hamstring, toe, ankle, and back injuries, and then played hurt through at least a few other games, averaging just 23 pass attempts, a career low as a starter. Jackson's passing efficiency was relatively stable, and he was still an effective downfield thrower, 6 touchdowns to 0 interceptions on throws 20-plus yards downfield. Okay, but didn't get as many chances, obviously. So the biggest drop-off, though, was in his running, where he averaged a career low in attempts at 5.2 and yards per game at 26.8. As the leg injuries really, deflated the wheel. We talked about the toe, the ankle, and the hamstring. So the Ravens' offense had its own problems, continually stalling in the red zone at 47.5%, ranked 27th, among other issues. But the team cleared out of the coaching staff, hired defensive-minded head coach from the Chargers, Jesse Minter, and then the new OC is Declan Doyle, who helped turn around the Bears last year as he was on the staff with Ben Johnson. Okay. Doyle promises more pre-snap motion. Sorry about that. If we got cut off there, said my mic was muted. Doyle promises more pre-snap motion and play action, which would, I think, seem to suit Jackson and Henry. The Ravens lost Pro Bowl center Tyler Linderbaum, which I think was a big loss, but they did, I think, replace that interior with their first-round pick of Vega from Penn State, the guard. Okay, so they also drafted a couple rookie wide receivers, Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt. I think to really help out Lamar Jackson, but likely Patrick Ricard, which is a big, long-time Raven. Both followed John Harbaugh to the Giants, and they don't really have obvious replacements back in Baltimore. So assuming that Doyle doesn't wilt as a first-time play caller and good health all around, I think that Jackson looks primed for a bounce-back season when it comes to the fantasy world. Now, coming back to Derrick Henry now. No player warrants the unicorn label more than him. Just get that out of the way. Okay, whose entire back details that aren't supposed to be possible. 6'3", 247 running back aren't supposed to exist because humans that big aren't supposed to move like that. Thanks to his freakish anchor, Henry can be too tall for a running back, yet subject to none of that pitfalls that normally come with it. Tacklers who tried to tackle Henry high turn to dust, and the ones who try to hit him low rarely turn out to be more than speed bumps unless your name's Cooper DeJean. Go Birds. Henry, now 32, carries higher risk of falling off a cliff each passing year, as we've said, right? But there isn't much of a hint of the more gradual form of physical decline. He was once again at over 5 yards per carry on more than 300 attempts. Okay, closing out a season where he had 3 fumbles lost with December to keep Baltimore in the playoff hunt. Although he thrived when Lamar Jackson was out last December, it should ultimately help Henry's fantasy value if Jackson bounces back strong under new OC Declan Doyle. It'll also help if the rookie guard, Vega, 14th overall pick, and the new veteran, John Simpson, who is now his second stint in Baltimore, are able to immediately step in as competent starters to help really make up for the free agent loss of Tyler Linderbaum and the longtime fullback, Patrick Ricard. The situation in Baltimore is still a good one overall, especially for touchdown production, and Henry's training regimen is the stuff of Jerry Rice stories, but potentially allowing him to cheat age and time. Okay, so, I mean, we touch on Henry a lot. Henry is very, very still draftable, guys, until I get proven otherwise of, that Henry is falling off this cliff like it is just this detrimental downfall. It's not going to happen. When he went to Baltimore, I said that was a great location for his career. He didn't necessarily have to be the guy, but he can be the guy. And obviously that's why they got him. But Lamar Jackson takes a lot of that pressure off of him, and I think that elongated his career and the length of it and just the way that he can perform each year in and out. Zay Flowers, their number 1 wide receiver, who I think is potentially poised for a bounce back season. Last season finished as a wide receiver 7. So when I say bounce back, I'm not necessarily meaning like fantasy ranking wise. I just meant more of like he's going to be Lamar Jackson's guy. I think last year you kind of seen DeAndre Hopkins get some targets, Rashad Bateman. I think that Zay Flowers definitely has the opportunity to step into this and make it known for a fact that he is a wide receiver 1. Flowers finished 2025 with career highs for catches at 86, receiving yards at 1211, and targets at 118. Okay, through his fantasy production was only marginally better than this 2024's until he scored a pair of long touchdowns in the fourth quarter of a Week 18 loss. So some of that was garbage time that we add to that. But again, he gets 118 with DeAndre Hopkins there, with Rashad Bateman there, Isaiah Likely there, Mark Andrews, Derrick Henry. Okay, I mean, it was a loaded room, believe it or not. Now you look at it. You got, the whole tight end room, Kolar, Isaiah Likely's gone. All you have is Mark Andrews. And then DeAndre Hopkins is gone, and you replace those with 2 rookies. So, can I sit here and say that the rookies are going to get all these targets? I can't say that. But what I can tell you is that last year he had 118 targets, and that was with a veteran's DeAndre Hopkins. That was with a veteran Mark Andrews. Derrick Henry still catching passes. Justice Hill still catching passes. So the ceiling there, I would say, is realistically 130, 140 catches, which puts him in a top 5 conversation for sure. Okay. As for Mark Andrews, right? Andrews averaged a career low 24.8 receiving yards per game in 2025, which is less than half of his 53.2 yards per game from his first 7 NFL seasons. His 70 targets marked his highest total since 2002, but Andrews, and then obviously dealing with Isaiah Likely, right? And 8.8 yards per catch. Both the worst marks of his career. Despite that drop-off, though, the Ravens chose in December to extend Andrews, who will turn 31 just before the start of the 2026 season, rather than Likely, who left for the Giants. Okay, now with Likely and Charlie Kolar leaving in free agency, Andrews seems to have less competition for snaps, routes, and targets. though the Ravens reportedly have been in contact with a few other veteran tight ends, but until that is seen otherwise, I think they signed Drew Smythe is the tight end too. So realistically, I mean, the targets are there for Mark Andrews to really, really have a bounce back season. Now, last season he did finish as a tight end 16. I do definitely see that definitely being a higher ranking this year. I could see a top 12 for Mark Andrews, which would be good for his legacy. Absolutely. Let's see here. Key additions for the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, already a great defense. Had a great draft last year, adding Malachi Starks. Almost had Max Crosby, but replaced that very quickly with a Trey Hendrickson, which I think will be a great pickup. They got Calais Campbell. Fantasy. So for fantasy targets, I'm going to go each with these players that we just talked about. Lamar Jackson, I still think is in that quarterback one status. He should be, let's say, top 6 quarterback taken off the board for sure. Derrick Henry, running back 1, but age risk, obviously. I mean, we say that every year. And when is the year? When is going to be? Are we going to ever see that decline? And with his workout regimen, we may never. Zay Flowers, I think a strong wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside. And then Mark Andrews, I do have a little bit of a boldness when it comes to Mark Andrews this year. I do think that he has the capability of being that tight end 1. The last few years that you've seen his numbers drip off is not only due to the injuries, it was also due to the emergence of like Isaiah Likely. Okay. So now that he is back into that star role, that guy that can lead an offense, I mean, he's definitely the most trusted guy with Lamar Jackson, I would say. And I think that bodes well for him. Okay. A sleeper I have is Rashad Bateman, who's going to have to prove that he can handle a wide receiver 2 opportunities. A bust risk, Derrick Henry, if the workload finally dips, if they, drafting these wide receivers, 2 of them, and maybe they open up the offense, maybe the OC opens up into 4 wide receiver sets, maybe they go into more of a passing offense. Obviously that could affect Derrick Henry, but I think you're going to see this drop off. Okay. Next team we'll get into here is the Cincinnati Bengals. Okay, the Cincinnati is still loaded. Burrow, Chase Higgins, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, right? So we got loaded offense. Now the question for me was always the defense, right? The Bengals also made defensive upgrades with Dexter Lawrence, Jonathan Allen, Boy Mafe, Brian Cook, and Kyle Duggar. And ESPN's depth chart has the list as Allen, Lawrence, and Mafe on the Bengals defensive front. So it's definitely a significant upgrade to what they've had in previous years, right? Again, key additions: Dexter Lawrence, Jonathan Allen, Boy Mafe, Brian Cook, Kyle Duggar. That's additions that can help a defense. Okay. As for, let's just talk about Burrow for a second, right? Burrow last year finished as a quarterback 29. Do I see that happening again? Poisoning a healthy season? Absolutely not. But for the second time in 3 years, Burrow's season was cut short because of injury, as he missed 9 games last year, weeks 3 through 12 with turf toe. He returned to throw 15 touchdown passes in the last 6 games, which was second in the league in that span, averaging about 37 attempts per game and a 630 attempt pace if he would have played a healthy 17 games. He'll need all of that for a shot at a top 5 fantasy season because he doesn't add much rushing production and doesn't always stretch the field. Last year, Burrow at least reversed a 3-year trend of not throwing downfield, with 10.4% of his attempts going at least 20 yards, his first time in double digits since 21. He still didn't light it up downfield, though. His average target depth was only 7.6 yards, leaving him with a mediocre mark of 7 yards. Okay, sticking with the same coach, Zach Taylor, offense should continue to give Burrow copious attempts. I don't see that changing for this offense. No team has passed more often since Taylor took over the Bengals in 2019 at 62%. The receiving weapons help, namely Chase and Higgins and Chase Brown, receiving running backs, in my opinion. While the tight end room may again be the committee led by Mike Gesicki, but better health alone returns Burrow to quarterback one status for fantasy, but probably as a mid-range starter rather than a top option in leagues where passing touchdowns count for only 4 points. Okay, so in some leagues, you'll check your scoring settings. If you have a scoring setting where it's only 4 points for a passing touchdown, I think that drops some of these guys that don't have that rushing production. Even in 2024, when he led the league with nearly 5,000 yards and 43 touchdowns, for example, Burrow topped out at quarterback 3 because of a lack of rushing. Okay, let's get into the big Ja'Marr Chase. Obviously, a perennial first-round fantasy pick. Chase was the popular one, first overall pick last year, and, well, he mostly lived up to it. Finished as the wide receiver 4, becoming the third player ever with 125-plus receptions in back-to-back seasons. Okay, he finished 2025 with a career high and league-leading 185 targets, yet his fantasy production at 19.5 points per game didn't quite match the 2024 level of almost 24. While Chase dropping from a 9.8 yards per target to 7.6. Obviously, the injury to Joe Burrow, but in the 5 games with Joe Flacco under center, Chase averaged an absurd 14.4, producing 21.5 PPR points despite only 6.8 yards per target. We know Joe Flacco doesn't have the cannon he used to, but hey, that's what you get when you have a perennial first-round pick in Ja'Marr Chase. He does most of the work for you. With Burrow now healthy and Flacco re-signed, Chase is as close to a sure thing as it is in fantasy football, having played at least 16 games in 4 of the last 5 seasons. He's averaged at least 16 points per game and 76 receiving yards each year, piling up short catches for easy points while also doing damage downfield. Okay, let's get into his running mate real quick. T. Higgins, who finished actually as a wide receiver 15 last year. Excuse me. Higgins is a safe bet for production. Excuse me, sorry. Higgins is a safe bet for production whenever he and Joe Burrow are healthy. The problem between that is keeping both of them healthy at the same time. Okay, it happened in 2021 and 2022, for the most part, with the results being the only 2,000-yard seasons of Higgins' career. Last year, Higgins had better luck with his lengthy series of lower body concerns, but a barrage of touchdowns from Joe Flacco helped him survive in fantasy during a lengthy Burrow absence. Okay, the wideout scored 11 times in 15 games, yet his scoring average was only 14 points, was just merely in line with his career average. Apart from the touchdowns, though, he struggled without Burrow in 2025, averaging only 52 yards and 6 targets over his first season. Higgins improved to almost 68 targets in the 4 games he played after Burrow's return. I just think he needs Joe Burrow on the field. Okay, when it's Joe Flacco, God forbid that it ends up being that year, I'm sitting T. Higgins, and I'm definitely starting Ja'Marr Chase. Okay, next guy to get into is Chase Brown, who finished as the running back 7 last year. Okay, what began as a nightmare season for Brown in 2025 eventually turned for the better, to the point that by the end of the year, that nightmare had been forgotten. Given how poorly it went down for Brown through the first 6 weeks, no one could have guessed how well he would do over the remaining 11 games. Indeed, Brown's year-end numbers in 2025 were similar to those from 2024, excuse me, buoyed by 8 touchdowns and 28 receptions over the final 6 weeks. Going into 2026, there's a reason to think Brown's production will be more even, hopefully keeping all of the highs while we're moving some of the lows, at least spacing them out more charitably, hopefully for Chase Brown owners, including myself. The Bengals didn't add any noteworthy running backs in the offseason, and returning back at Shamir Perine is just about as non-threatening as a veteran backup gets. Even if he cedes a few carries to Perine or somebody else, Brown is a strong bet to pile up catches and goal line touches in a prolific offense, creating an obvious path to running back 1 fantasy value. So for me, guys, he's definitely a starter. Like I said, that running back 1 high upside with definitely a low running back 1, high running back 2. If you can get him as a running back 2, that's a heck of a steal. Joe Burrow, I definitely have as a quarterback 1. I'm going over these fantasy targets. Ja'Marr Chase is an elite wide receiver 1. He should be arguably the first wide receiver taken off the board next to Puka and JSN. T. Higgins is in that wide receiver 2 category for me. Again, as long as Joe Burrow stays healthy, we're kosher. If Joe Burrow goes down, I think I'm sitting T. Higgins as long as that is a thing. Sleeper for me is Chase Brown this year. I think that he is poised for more of a volume increase just because they're going to want to protect Joe Burrow, guys. I mean, they now have a defense to where they could get a little bit more opportunities considering their defense may be able to get people off the field. Bust risk, I do think, is Mike Gesicki. He's the 4-man there. I even think you got Ila Zofis, however you say his name. That guy that's been in Bengals a couple years has stepped up when Higgins was out or Chase was out. I think that's a trusted Burrow guy. But, so is Mike Gesicki, but I just think that he's on that lower tier of this offense. Next team we're going to talk about here is the Cleveland Browns. Okay, Cleveland has the upside in some of the key additions and just the young upside that they have, but that quarterback situation makes really this team to maybe be the toughest to trust. Okay, Todd Monken is now the head coach. A little old school for me. Jared Verse is now in Cleveland. Okay, with the Myles Garrett trade, so the defense looks a lot different. Is it going to look worse? Technically, yes, because you just traded the best defensive player in the league. But you did get a young Verse, so I don't think that this defense falls off as much as people think. I get the whole Myles Garrett thing, but again, Jared Verse, let's not act like he didn't win Rookie of the Year, which we could talk about at a different time, which was a snub. But he run Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He has this young, promising career. Obviously, Cleveland sees him as a cornerstone. I don't think that they fall off as much. You got rookie wide receivers, KC Conception and Denzel Boston. They're definitely names to watch. Okay. Now, obviously, is the quarterback situation, right? We have Shedeur, Deshaun Watson, Dylan Gabriel. I think the guy, Taylor Green, right, is the rookie. But I think it's really the competition between Watson and Shedeur. Do I honestly think Shedeur should get the shot? Yes, I do. I think that, they were the better team when he definitely played over Gabriel last year. God, I don't remember the last time I seen Deshaun Watson play a football game, so that makes me nervous. I just think that Shedeur has earned that. Now, if he starts the first 4 weeks and is done out, I don't blame you for a quarterback change. But I think just to I also understand that you're giving a lot of money to Watson. So, it's hard to judge in that department, in that quarterback situation, because there's a lot of money on the table here. So, again, key additions, new head coach, Jared Verse, KC Conception, Denzel Boston. and then we can get into a few of these players here. We're gonna just talk about the quarterback as a whole because we kind of just did, but we'll talk about these positional players here real quick. So we'll start with Quinshawn Junkins. I think if Junkins came back from an ankle injury at full strength, he should be a weekly starter in fantasy leagues, even if if the Browns don't have much going for them in a Todd Monken first year offense as head coach. Okay, Junkins suffered a season-ending dislocated right ankle in Week 16 last year, grueling, cutting short what was otherwise a promising rookie campaign. The broader struggles of the Cleveland offense landed hard on Junkins as the season wore on, but he outplayed his box score, and that box score wasn't even so bad. His 7 touchdowns and 3.6 yards per catch over 14 games represent acceptable production in the light of how dysfunctional the Browns were on offense. An outcome by a downpour of injuries on the offensive line. Their blocking should be better in 2026 after an aggressive offseason overhaul. Okay, but Deshaun Watson or Shadir Sanders are still the biggest names at quarterback, and Dylan Sampson seems to be the favorite for the passing down snaps in the backfield. Okay, now there is no denying Junkins' talent as a runner, and he's even shown potential to develop as that pass catcher, but that doesn't mean everything will go as smoothly as he comes back from a major surgery to join a clearly rebuilding team. So next guy we can talk about, Harold Fanning. So I think that he obviously is now replacing David Njoku as the team's top pass catcher at tight end. Last year, Fanning ranked 5th among NFL tight ends with 107 targets on just 417 routes ran, which speaks to the depth of appetizing alternatives in the Cleveland passing game. But only 10 of those targets came in the red zone, with 3 inside the 10-yard line. So Fanning's scoring opportunities may remain limited, even if the team's best receiving weapon, even if he is the best receiving weapon near the goal line. The Browns did add, obviously, competition here. Casey Conception, Denzel Boston. And then you still have Jerry Jeudy, who's going to, should he take a lot? No, but he's going to take some, right? But I do think he has promise to be that, they have a great young core. Minus that quarterback situation, you have to give somebody the confidence to be able to step up in this offense and be able to lead this offense. And whether it is Watson, whether it is Shadur, I just think they need to make that decision quickly. Now, for Casey Conception, obviously drafted him 24th overall in terms of earning immediately playing time. Conception will turn 22 in December. Had a great career at Texas A&M in 2025, 61 catches, 919, and 9 touchdowns. One might read these stats and guess that Conception is an undersized burner, but he actually checks in at 6 foot, 196, winning with agility and acceleration more than just straight line speed. Okay. He did have an off-season knee scope preventing him from running the 40-yard dash, which may not have been such a bad thing for his draft value, but Conception should be healthy before training camp in any case, with every opportunity to earn a starting job under the new head coach. Now, the next guy we can talk about, Boston. On the flip side of that, last year Cleveland's wide receivers combined for, I think, a meager, barely 1,500 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy led that way with 50 catches and 602 yards and 2 touchdowns on 106 targets, while rookie tight end Harold emerged as the true number 1 that we just talked about. Long story short, Conception's presence shouldn't block Boston from any playing time, though it could be a slight issue for target volume that both of them, like Fanning, are yards after catch reliant and not so adept at getting open downfield. Okay, Boston did make big plays at Washington, thriving on contested catches, including in the red zone. He put up 63 catches, 834 and 9, and 62 catches, 811 and 11 in his final 2 collegiate seasons before mostly forgoing workouts ahead of the draft. Okay, he's been compared to Michael Pittman and probably has some leeway to get by without great separation, instead relying on the physicality and the strong hands. In Cleveland, there's clear opportunity for playing time, and but no clear timeline for when competent quarterback play will arrive for him or Casey Conception. It's a tough call. It's a tough call because of the quarterback room, but as far as the fantasy targets, Jerry Jeudy more than a wide receiver 2 flex. Definitely not any starters in this offense. David Njoku is gone, so I would have Harold Fanning. I think that he's a starting tight end. Might have spoke a little earlier. I think that he could potentially be a tight end 1. I also think that, for me, Shadur, if you're going to draft him, he should just be a dynasty stash at this point. I'm not drafting him in redraft. If you get Deshaun but in a late round stash, you can get both of them late round, really late round, if you want to go that Browns quarterback route. But excuse me, if you're going to go that route, the Browns quarterback route, you need to have both of them because, again, there is no question, no answer to that question of who's going to start. Okay, the sleeper, I do have Casey Conception. I do like Casey Conception over Denzel Boston this year, just because of the way that he plays the game, the way that he's going to fit into the offense that the Browns ran. And, the bust risk is just the quarterback room. Whether it's Watson or Shadur, I think that, it's the Browns are probably gearing up to go after that next guy, whether it be Dante Moore, Arch Manning, whoever is going to come out this next year. Next team we're going to get into is Pittsburgh. Okay. I think Pittsburgh for me is a lot more interesting now than it was last year. Okay. Aaron Rodgers is back. Right, Mike McCarthy is the new head coach. Hello, 2012. And the Steelers added Michael Pittman Jr. to a wide receiver room that also included DK Metcalf. Okay, Steelers now list Rodgers, Warren, DK Metcalf, Pittman Jr. They're all official. Also Rico Dowdle. Let's not get away from that. Rico Dowdle and Jalen Warren, I think, could be argued to be a top 5 at the end of the season, a top 5 running back duo. If Rico Dowdle can still get into that 1,000-yard season talent that he has, and Jalen Warren can be that pass-catching guy and still run the ball very well, they could take a lot off of Aaron Rodgers, especially with Michael Pittman and DK Metcalf out there. You still have Pat Freiermuth. You still have Jonnu Smith. Okay. For a couple of these guys, let's go over this. Let's start with Jalen Warren. We'll save Aaron Rodgers for last because he is a late round grab for just age. Warren is the perfect running back, too, for a modern NFL offense because his adaptiveness on passing downs gives him a sixth man sort of presence despite playing off the bench. And he can do a good short-term impression of a running back 1 if the starter gets in. The difficulty with Warren in 2025 was that he was forced to work as the running back 1 too often, overworking him slightly as he took on more and bigger hits than he was previously accustomed to. Okay, Caleb Johnson proved unable to earn playing time at all, and Kenneth Gainwell could only withstand in-space functions. So Warren was forced to do more dirty work and more power running than normally suit him. Because of his rushing workload increased so substantially, the Steelers were forced to limit his pass-catching activity, which badly sapped Warren's weekly fantasy upside, while Gainwell regularly poached valuable touches, especially as a wide receiver. Okay, just for example, Gainwell was targeted at a blistering pace at 85 times on 500 snaps, but because Warren was worn out from the heavy lifting, As a runner, Warren was only able to draw 45 on 489. The arrival of Rico Dowdle dictates a reduction in his carry count. I think these roles are going to reverse. Rico Dowdle is going to be the next Jaylen Warren, and Jaylen Warren will replace Kenneth Gainwell in that realm. Now, first wide receiver we'll talk about, DK Metcalf, right? Last year they kind of got him to replace the George Pickens. It wasn't exactly a bad year for DK Metcalf, as he still made timely big plays, but his target share at 21.5% in 15 active games was far from dominant, even though he was the only show in town really at wide receiver. Okay, quarterback Aaron Rodgers threw a ton of passes to tight ends and running backs, with the lack of deep throws also showing up for Metcalf in the form of a decrease in average depth of target, which was only 10 yards. He'll be in a much different offensive system this year, with head coach Mike McCarthy replacing former OC Arthur Smith as the primary schemer in the move. That sounds promising for a passing game volume, if you remember how the Green Bay Packers went back in the early 2010s. Now, the problem is quarterback play, with Pittsburgh either relying on a 42-year-old Rodgers or turning to someone like a Will Howard or a Drew Allar. Okay, the Steelers also added competition for Metcalf with Michael Pittman before using a second-round pick on Jeremy Bernard. In other words, any rebound from Metcalf is likely to be modest. Okay, and as for Michael Pittman, obviously they traded for him. I think that he enters possibly that wide receiver one. I think that he is better than DK Metcalf by a slight margin. I do. Like last year, Pittman finished as 18 and Metcalf finished as wide receiver 26. So I just, not in just fantasy terms, I just think as a player, I think Pittman is going to be potentially Rodgers' favorite over Metcalf. Bernard, I'm not so sure is going to eat. I mean, he's got to compete with Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin. He's got some people to really compete with. Now, as for Rodgers, again, I think that he's got better weapons than what he's had in previous years, but he's getting up in age. He's only here for one more year, and they're going to pass the torch off. He wanted to run with Mike McCarthy, which is rightfully so. But I think that, for last year, he was quarterback 18. I think that's respectable. I think a top 20 finish for Aaron Rodgers in his final year will be, I think it will be respectable. As for the tight end room, I do apologize. I said Jonnu Smith earlier. Jonnu Smith did leave, and it is now Darnell Washington. So it'd be interesting to see if Mike McCarthy throws Darnell Washington into this whole offensive scheme of his. I think Darnell Washington is very underutilized. I think he's a big athletic freak that I'm surprised this hasn't been used in certain ways. As far as the fantasy targets, so again, I have DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman both as a wide receiver too, but I would put DK Metcalf in that more flex area. Just because I think that Michael Pittman's going to have a better fantasy year. Jaylen Warren, I would put in that running back 2 department, as well as Rico Dowdle, just because of the combination, the carries and the targets they're going to take from each other. They're all going to balance each other out. Aaron Rodgers, I think, is a quarterback 2. If you have 2 quarterbacks in your starting lineup, I don't think Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback 2 is a bad play. I really don't. I do think that Pat Freiermuth is a bench tight end, but a tight end 2 with upside. Okay. The sleeper here is Pat Freiermuth, and the bust risk realistically, guys, is Aaron Rodgers. I mean, 42 years old. There's only been one guy that's been able to do it at a high level at 40. And, as much as I like Aaron Rodgers sometimes, he's not Tom. So, the AFC North position ranking. So we've been doing this the last couple of weeks to where we'll go through the position and basically rank the players as a whole in the division. And the quarterback room, I do have Lamar Jackson at 1. Again, rushing over passing. It's a big thing. Number 2, Joe Burrow. Number 3, Aaron Rodgers. And number 4, we just put Cleveland starter because it is hard. It's hard to determine what other coaching staff is thinking. But again, if it was my choice, I'd probably start Shadur, give him that opportunity to show, hey, man, you've had a whole offseason. You had games last year. Show us what you got. If you can't get it done, well, we got a lot of money in this guy. Well, it's a lot of money, so we're just going to let him play. I mean, I get that point. They screwed themselves making that contract, but this is how they got to pay for it. Mediocre quarterback play. So running backs, I do have Derrick Henry as number 1. Okay, I do think that Chase Brown has that capability of being that quarterback or that one because of the receiving department. But I do think that just Derrick Henry just gets the more volume. I mean, the Ravens don't have a Chase or a Higgins or a, you know what I mean? Like they have Derrick Henry. They have Lamar Jackson. So Chase Brown at number 2, Jaylen Warren at number 3, and then number 4, Quinshawn Junkins. I just think that he's stuck in a black hole right now with bad quarterback play and some offseason additions on the offensive line, but I got to see how it plays out first. Wide receiver wise, we'll go top 7. We'll go Chase, Zay Flowers at number 2, T. Higgins at number 3, DK at number 4, Pittman Jr. at number 5. I would actually swap those. I would do Pittman, Metcalf, and then Judy at 6 just because of the targets, and KC Conception at number 7. In the tight end room, I would go Mark Andrews. I think he's built for a bounce back year, even past the age part. Okay. Again, with Isaiah likely being there, he didn't have to be the guy. Now he has the opportunity to be the guy. And I'm excited for Mark Andrews. I think that he can put the naysayers to rest there. And Pratt Fairmouth, I think, is a strong one at number 2. Mike Gesicki, and obviously, I forgot about Harold Fanning. I would put Harold Fanning at number 2. And then Pat and Mike Gesicki. I just think that Harold Fanning, again, like Junkins, is going to struggle from a quarterback play. Mark Andrews is his quarterback favorite. His favorite red zone target, his favorite target in general. Has been for the last couple years or more than that. But Harold Fanning Jr., I just think, is in a black hole. But we're with Mike Gesicki to round that out. Now, our bold takes for the night. Lamar Jackson enters that quarterback top 3 status again. New offensive coordinator. Maybe he stays healthy. He has the capability, guys. Number 2, Zay Flowers finishes as a top 10 at wide receiver. Now, again, if Lamar Jackson, his quarterback, has that great of a year, it's got to be somebody that's catching those balls, right? And I think it may be Zay Flowers. Okay, for the Bengals, Chase Brown finishes as a top 12 running back. I don't think that's – I feel like I could go a little bit bolder than a top 12 running back. But, again, when you have Chase and all these targets that you have to deal with, it does kind of limit you to a point. I think that, number 4, Ja'Marr Chase will lead the AFC North in fantasy points as a whole. Highest pointed skill player. Number 5, DK Metcalf could, and this is why it's bold, outscores Michael Pittman Jr., but I think both could be fantasy relevant. But I do think the safest play for me would be Michael Pittman over DK, but that bold prediction would be the flip side of, hey, maybe D's like, hey, he was here last year when we went through tough times, and, I'm going to give him his targets. Okay. Number 6, Harold Fanning Jr. becomes Cleveland's safest weekly fantasy option. At number 7, Mark Andrews bounces back as a top 5 tight end. I really am high on Mark Andrews this year, guys. And my boldest prediction, okay, boldest prediction of the night, probably boldest prediction that we've done so far in the division. Cincinnati at number 8. Cincinnati wins the division, but Baltimore produces the most fantasy points. All right, final division predictions. Best fantasy offense, I do say the Ravens. Safest offense, probably the Bengals. I'm going to be real honest about it. I think that, they have the trio that's the safest, health-wise, most improved offense. I would say the Steelers. Again. Quarterback play for the Browns. If they would have added those two wide receivers to a veteran, experienced Deshaun Watson, maybe we're having a different conversation. Most uncertain offense, definitely the Browns. Best sleeper team, also the Browns. Quarterback play, guys. This is quarterback play that's so up in the air. If these quarterbacks come out and start playing, they have the firepower to do so. Fantasy MVP is Lamar Jackson for this division, or Ja'Marr Chase. Biggest breakout is Chase Brown, but the biggest bust risk is Aaron Rodgers. Guys, appreciate you guys coming out tonight. That is going to be us wrapping this up tonight. Next week, we are going to be covering the AFC South. Make sure you guys tune into that. That's going to be a heck of a banger. We're going to be talking about some new acquisitions that obviously the Texans, the Patriots, who's going to win that division, right? So we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. Again, appreciate the Sports Lounge Media. Go give us a follow, guys, at the Marshall Experience or the Sports Lounge Media. Both are growing. Both are there and for free. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. We will see you next week at 6 p.m. Central. You guys have a great night. Thank you.